Here we go, Paul. Rushforth. Thank you so much for joining me today, buddy. All the way from Ottawa in Canada. So stoked that you can join me on the Repurpose podcast, the podcast with a bit of a purpose where I'm going to talk to you, Paul, over the next 60 minutes, 90 minutes, and we're going to break your hockey life into three periods. First period is going to be about your youth and falling in love in the game. Second period is going to be about your pro career and specifically those 4 years in the Ice Hockey Super League with the London Knights, because that's what everyone wants to hear about. And then the third period, we're going to talk about that inevitability with any hockey player, the hanging up the skates time, and then how you've grown an amazing real estate company where at one point I actually did see your name on a Zamboni in Ottawa.
Yeah, that's correct.
A hugely successful real estate company in Ottawa. And then we'll just see what happens if there's an overtime. So, first of all, thanks a lot. How's everything going, by the way? Before we drop the puck.
Thanks for having me, Nick. And it's actually a pleasure to be on and good to see you again. It's been so many years, so it's I'm happy to be here. Yeah, what was the question?
No, there's no questions yet. What we're gonna do, like I say, I'm gonna try. I should have got like a light and a buzzer or something like that to kind of indicate 20 minutes. But we're gonna just start off with your early career. But Paul, when you agreed to do this, I was just so stoked because I was just remembering. I know before we start those old days in London where it was all set up, the London Knights coming into the league and everything, and I just remember your presence there. And I was doing some rink announcing, and I think I had to call you Paul Rushforth.
Yeah,
as you stepped onto the ice. So just some really great memories are coming back to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had those 4 years in London. I had lots of fond memories. I mean, that was a 10-year pro career cut short by injuries and concussions. But those last 4 years of my career were in London, England. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. A lot of good memories. A lot of good guys I met there. And it's I've gone back once with my daughter who was born there, and it was just I want to go back again. It's one of my favorite places to see.
Well, we'll have to set something up when you're there and I'm there.
For sure.
And let's do this, Paul. Now let's drop the puck. We're going to start the first period. And I like to start off with the guys is just, I just know you as a pro hockey player, and for every hockey player, there's a time in their life where they first set on the foot on the ice, and those early memories of learning how to skate, getting on the ice, the smells, the touches of the ice and everything. And what are your earliest memories of skating and getting on the ice?
My first memory is my parents put me on the ice. I think I was 4 years old, and I was in Burns Lake, BC, a small little town in Burns Lake. And my parents put me on the ice, and I sat there and I cried my eyes out and I peed my pants. That was my first memory of being on the ice. But no, I was very lucky to grow up. I left Burns Lake, I think, when I was 7 or 8, but we lived right on the water. So my dad every winter would shovel off an ice skating rink for me. And my earliest memories was just skating on that rink with my dad. And we would walk down the hill right onto the ice and we just skate for hours. So those are my earliest memories. I don't really remember organized hockey when I was in Burns Lake. I mean, I know I played, but I don't remember. Then when I moved to Ottawa, I remember those days very well, my early years on the ice.
I was telling the other day, my first memory is being on the ice, and everyone's gonna hear this because I repeat it, but being on the ice in Pontiac, Saskatchewan, in a barn that they freeze in the wintertime because it got so cold back then, and with like pieces of hay that were sticking up through the ice, and I had little bob skates on, and I was 3 years old, and I remembered like touching the ice and crying, like thinking, what is this? And isn't it funny? Those early, like 3 years old, you have these visceral memories of like crying.
Well, I still tell memories tell stories, to some of my, let's say, my Southern American friends or people over in Europe, and they really don't understand how cold the Canadian winters are. And they're like, you'd be outside in like minus 30 Celsius skating? Like, who does that? I'm like, that's what Canadians do. Like, we outdoor rinks and skating paths and rivers and lakes. Like those are my earliest memories. Is it's not even the organized hockey that really sticks out to me. It's more my outdoor rink stories is where I really started, where I really fell in love with the game.
And that would have been, as you mentioned, in Ottawa, right?
Yeah. So in Ottawa, I grew up very close to an outdoor rink, and they always tell the stories how Gretzky would be on the outdoor rink from, morning till night. Well, that was me too. Like my parents would be like, "Are you coming home to eat it all?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm good. I'm just going to play hockey." And we played all day, every day. When we weren't at school, we were on the outdoor rink, and that's what we did.
Did you get in trouble for staying out too late?
I got back when it was dark, but then again, the lights come on right on the rink when it's dark. So I'm sure I stayed out a little bit late most days, but it was those are my fun memories of growing up and learning how to play the game.
I used to play. It's funny. It was like always with a tennis ball. It wasn't with a puck, and it was late at night after school, and just bouncing the ball off the walls and stuff. And one other guy would stay out late with me, and we would just play ends, just trying to score
Yeah.
on each other. And I do remember like sometimes we would keep our skates, and I do remember that one time it was so cold I kept my skates on, and I tried to skate home,
Oh,
and I was
that's
like going
awesome.
on the gravel on the streets, and I got
Yeah.
home and my dad gave me such shit because yeah, I had to go sharpen my skates the next day
Yeah.
because I had a game and they were just
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was just I say about this word around playing the game, and obviously we always think about playing the game as the competition, but the pure joy of having fun and playing. Like what were those feelings like? Like what was the joy like that you can
You know what's
remember?
what's funny? As you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, when did I really fall potentially out of love with the game? And it was what we're probably going to talk about in the second period. It's when I turned pro, when it became a job and very rigid in that. But the early years, it was fun. I mean, my first of all, my parents were Australian, so I could score 10 goals or one goal and they'd be like, good game. They wouldn't even know if I played well or not. Right. And there was no pressure on me. And my dad wasn't one of those parents where, I had to be in all these extra stuff. My dad forced me to do this and made me go power skating and that. He didn't know hockey. So he just, if you love the game, whatever you want to do, I'll support you. And I think that was like a breath of fresh air because I see so many kids nowadays whose parents are pushing them. They're trying to live through their kids and their parents are pushing them to be these superstars that they don't want to be. And I was lucky in my childhood. I didn't have that. I had a very supportive dad. I had a very supportive mom, and they weren't pushing me to do anything. In fact, they probably didn't even know you could have a career in hockey. So that was also one of my best things about my upbringing is just having parents that just let me have fun, which
Mm,
is so
that's
important.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And like anybody who grew up in Canada, the time that we grew up in is going was going to talk about hockey night in Canada. So, what was that like in your house with Australian parents? Did they actually watch hockey night in Canada? And when did you start to recognize NHL players and go, "Oh, I want to be like that guy"?
You know what? Hockey night in Canada was a religion for me. It wasn't for my parents, but my dad would sit down and occasionally watch a game with me and that. But it wasn't. They didn't love. I mean, if there's an Australian rules football game on, they'd be sitting down to watch that. But because they are from Australia, but yeah, the hockey night in Canada though, I remember every single Saturday. It was like if I had a game during hockey night in Canada, I'd be so disappointed because that was a religion for me. I loved watching hockey night in Canada. Where it became a reality for me that I could potentially get paid to play this game and become a pro hockey player was I was playing at the Pee Wee Quebec tournament, which is one of the biggest tournaments. I mean, you got teams from Japan and Czech and all these places coming over and playing in this tournament, and it's where the best of the best were played. And we got to meet some of the Quebec Nordiques, which was really cool. And it's at that point where I was like, I think I was player of the tournament, MVP of the tournament, top forward. And I was like, geez, I might have a chance to do something with this game. I'm actually not bad. And that was probably the first time I thought to myself, I'm actually a decent hockey player that I can maybe make this as a career. And, like most young kids, what do you want to do for a living? A doctor, a lawyer? No, hockey player. Well, what if that doesn't work out? It'll work out. I want to be a hockey player, and and that's what I wanted. I mean, I just from that point on, I had a passion to want to be the best and want to be a pro hockey player, and that was my to get drafted to the NHL was my goal, and that was a dream.
How old would you have been then, like in when you started organized hockey and those first jerseys that you put on and first being part of a team?
Oh, I would have been. It was early. Like I would have been five, six, seven. I don't remember hockey in Burns Lake. I'm sure I played organized hockey, but I don't remember it. But I do remember playing in the West End of Ottawa for the Nepean Raiders, and tryouts and putting on those jerseys, and how proud I was to to be a part of that top Double A team. And even to this day, most of the people that I played with in those teams, we were such a great team that we were almost the same team the whole way up. I'm
Mm.
friends with some of them today. One of them is in my real estate business with me. Like it's those were the best days because that team was so close. I mean, we'd always be on the outdoor rinks together. We'd always be in at the rinks together. We'd always have our parties together. We were just such a close knit team, and those were my really really fond days of hockey for sure.
I'm getting the sense of a pattern of guys who started playing hockey, and around that kind of 12 to 17, well, maybe 11 to 17, they started to form these bonds with these guys. And those bonds seem to be stronger than the ones then went after you started playing pro, semi-pro, or whatever, WHL, OHL, then pro.
Yeah,
Those relationships that you had in the changing rooms with guys that you played with and you got paid to play with are not as strong as the ones that you formed when you were literally preteen in your early teens and mid-teens. And I'm certainly friends with guys back then and and they're strong bonds, like you mentioned. So what was that kind of team atmosphere like? Like you say, you guys were so good, you stayed a team for a little while.
yeah, we were such a close knit team. We were like, I couldn't even say, so that guy's my best friend. Actually, he's my best friend. Actually, he's my best friend. Like we were, that's how close we were. And I think what happens with minor hockey compared to pro is pro, you bounce around. You might be on one team one year, another team, or maybe you stay for a few years, but your friends are gone off to a different team. So in pro, it's a lot more transient. Where when you're playing minor hockey, the team's usually the team minus two or three players, maybe changing every year. But other than that, you play with these guys from 7, 8 years old to when you go away to play in the OHL. So it's like you're with these guys a lot. So a lot of my best memories, excuse me, as a kid were even just off the ice with these guys. I had such a great bond with them, and it's fun. I was at a friend's track meet the other day. His son's an amazing sprinter, and we grew up playing minor hockey together. And we turn around, there's another one of our guys. We almost had a reunion. There's like six of us, so we haven't seen each other in years, but we still call each other great friends. And it's those are the bonds that I really remember and I really cherish. And I had lots of great friends when I played pro too, but it's just a lot more transient game.
Do you remember like your first tournaments and going away for weekends playing
Uh,
overnighters?
what's funny? The tournaments were the best. Sometimes we forgot our gear because as long as we had our mini sticks, we were good. I used to love
Explain that.
tournaments.
You're gonna have to explain that.
Yeah, so I mean, it was like a ritual that every tournament, when you weren't playing, you'd race to get back to the hotel after a game. You'd grab your mini hockey stick, you'd go out into the halls, and you just have mini stick games for hours and hours. So the coach eventually shut it down and said, "Guys, you have another game today." So, but the tournaments were, yeah, the most fun because you got to hang with the boys, and the mini sticks in the hall was a dream. I remember one tournament, um, one guy actually forgot his gear, but he had his mini sticks, but he totally forgot his gear. And we were
Yeah.
playing the tournament, I think it was 3 or 4 hours away, and it was hilarious. But yeah, those mini stick games are a fond memory in the hotels.
Here's the thing. What did you play with? A puck, a ball, or rolled up socks?
So usually we played with a ball or we played with one of those rubber pucks. But the problem with the rubber puck on carpet, it's not as
Yeah.
great. So we usually use balls.
And then on the knees or
On the knees.
yeah.
Sometimes we're on the knees, sometimes we're up. But what's
Yeah.
funny is now my kids, I mean, that was just a given. You were going to do that, and parents were trying to get by, and you'd have to stop the game, and it was hilarious. But nowadays, when I take my kids to their tournaments, you actually have to sign a waiver that you will not do mini stick games in the hall, and I laugh because that's my era. We live for mini stick games.
I'm just trying to think about the hallways that got destroyed,
Oh yeah,
the fire extinguishers that got knocked off walls, the plants that got knocked over just by mini hawks, mini stick games.
oh, there was always an injury, and there was always a dent or a scratch or a
Yeah.
something in the wall.
Now, Paul, I'm remembering back to some of my first tournaments, and I was thinking about some of the things that I learned, and it was you all of a sudden you're going from an environment of playing in your hometown to being on the road with these guys, and you start learning like bus etiquette, hotel etiquette, eating buffet food with your friends, and you start to learn these lessons in life. And I remember actually being in a queue for food, and there was a quiche there, and this kid in front of me says, "What's that?" And they said, "Oh, it's a quiche." And he said, "Oh, real men don't eat quiche." And I remember this lesson. My dad was behind me, and he just leaned forward and he goes, "Son, real men eat whatever the fuck they want."
Yeah, yeah,
and and he swore like that. And I just remember looking, going, "Wow, I was a really proud moment of my dad, just
yeah.
to say that real men can eat whatever they want." And everyone kind of, it was just this lesson, just this life thing that the six guys that were all around heard, and we kind of chuckled about. I'm wondering what are the kind of things, the lessons in life, the little fun anecdotes that you learn from other fathers and stuff, the coaches, just about being part of a team and young men growing up in the world.
Well, you know what? I do remember that every tournament. Now I see what we do on tournaments now. The dads are always having cocktails and stuff like that. So I'm sure my dad and all his friends were doing the same thing. But I do remember that usually when you went down for lunch, you'd say, "Hey, Dad, do you mind if I go down for lunch?" You'd charge it to the room. There'd always be one or two parents that were hanging around. Um, and one of the parents that really took a liking to me, and I was very fond of, he became one of my best friend's dads. One of my dad's best, whatever. Well, you know what I'm trying to say.
I get
Um,
it.
yeah, and I still remember some of the lessons that he taught me just driving to hockey because my dad was a doctor, so there's sometimes we had 5 o'clock practice, so this guy would drive me to practice because he was a real estate agent and he could make his own schedule. Um, and he was almost like a second dad to me, and he taught me lots of things. And when we were in hotels, when we were away on tournaments, if he was the dad that was down at the table, I always sat with him, and he'd always, if I was doing something wrong with the food or I didn't like this, or he'd always help me. He would always help me, and I still remember him. He recently passed away in a car accident, and I still remember some of the lessons that he taught me. And it was always nice that we always had sort of the same dads and the same moms, but usually at tournaments it was the dads taking their sons away. Um, and I've lots of fond memories of a lot of the parents on the team, but there's just a few that I'll always have a soft spot for because they taught me lots of
Yeah.
lessons.
Oh, me too. I can remember three or four dads that just dads would take turns picking kids up in the morning on the way to, if we had early morning practices, and there was just this cool demeanor about them, and they kind of laid down the groundworks for work ethic. And if you make hay when the sun shines, and it was like my dad he was a good man for teaching lessons, but it really was, I think, and this is what I love so much about sport and going away on tournaments, is that you get the influence of other people. You start to kind of, it is the idea of like a tribe raising kids. And in those supportive environments, there are so many lessons to be learned. And so anyway,
Richard, you're right. You're absolutely right.
yeah,
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 I agree with
yeah.
that.
Now I'm thinking too. Now, when is sport, like in kind of maybe your mid-teens? When are you thinking to yourself, your early mid-teens? When are you thinking, okay, OHL is close, drafting? Like when are you thinking, oh, this is my aim to get drafted to the OHL, or to get to get picked up by some team where it can further progress me and leapfrog me into a pro career somewhere?
Well, at 14 years old, I remember being one of the top rated kids in Canada for hockey. And the next year, I think it was minor bantam, um, no kid had ever been drafted to the Central Junior Hockey League. It's a league that you play with, it's usually 17 to 21-year olds. And I would have been the next year, I would have been protected by the Nepean Raiders Junior A team. And I got a call from the scouts, where my dad got a call from the general manager of the Ottawa Junior Senators and said, "We're thinking of taking your kid as a 15-year-old to play in this Central Junior Hockey League. Do you think he's up for it?" And I said, "Well, my draft year is next year." And he says, "Well, if we take you as a 15-year-old, we can own your rights. The problem is there's never been a 15-year-old ever play in this league. So you're playing with 20, 21 like big men, and you are you up for it? Do you want to try out?" And I said, "Sure, I'll try out." And I was like, "I'm not going to make it, but it's a good experience to try out." And I ended up making that team. and I was the first 15-year-old ever to play in the Central Junior Hockey League. And I was mentored by a 20-year-old last year in the league. He would drive me to practices, and I was playing with men. Like these guys were. I mean, I think my first scrimmage, I saw two guys drop the mitts and go toe to toe, and I was like, "Holy crap, where am I?" So an amazing experience. It taught me to grow up a little quicker, that's for sure, because I was hanging around, guys with beards, and I don't even think I had pubic hair on my under my arms, or on my pubes. I don't know. Maybe I didn't. I don't know, but that's when I realized, like, holy shit, I'm 15 years old playing in this league. I got a chance. I got a really, really good chance. And then that year I had a decent year. Like we had a strong team. So I think I was a fourth line centerman. I didn't get a ton of ice time, but it was a great experience for me to grow up and really learn the game and have some confidence that I can actually do this. And I started becoming a name that people talked about because they're like, look at this frigging kid. And so at that point, I was like, the OHL is a reality. This is a reality. And I still remember the fight between my parents because my mom is a massive educator. Like education is everything. So she said, I was getting all these letters for scholarships too, even though I was too young for a scholarship, but I was getting all these schools from the States that were giving me letters saying, we intend to give you a full ride when you're, whatever it is, 18 years old. So I had all these intent letters. My mom's like, you need to go to university. What a great way to get an American university, totally paid for. The schools are $100,000 a year. And my dad's like, he can do what he wants. And I was like, my quickest way to the NHL is through the OHL. And that's, at that point, that's the way it was. University kids, they were drafted, but not usually as high as the OHL kids. So it was a big fight between my parents. And I remember this to the day. I made an agreement with my mom that she would allow me to play in the OHL, but I had to ask for a school package. Meaning when I was done playing, the team would pay for 4 years of education at a Canadian university for me. Back then, no one asked for those. They just weren't accept. Like no one asked for those packages. So I was a highly rated first round. That's where I was rated, high in the first round of the OHL draft. And well, I'd say midway in the first round of the OHL draft. And I asked for a school package, and I ended up getting drafted in the 6th round. Asking for a school package. So it's, what, if I was to do, I have no regrets, but at the same time, one of the things if I could change, I would have went to American University. I would have got an education. I would have, just experience that my daughter's going through right now in university. I'm like, God, I wish I would have had that experience. It looks like so much fun. So, but hindsight's 2020. Things work out the way they did, and I went on to have a 3-year career in the OHL, and then got drafted to the NHL and went pro.
And dude, that is a great way to end the first period. Bang on awesome. It. You're a pro.
Awesome.
Let's have a little intermission. What was Paul Rushforth's routine during intermission times?
I'm sure it changed over the years, but I would always, my gloves were always soaked, so I'd always have get my gloves onto the heater, and I'd always gear down into just my pants and skates and all that. I always take my top gear off, and it was always a Gatorade and a water, and then we just shoot the shit with the boys. Like intermissions were fun, were a lot of fun. If most intermissions, I probably had ice bags all over me, but it was still, I enjoyed intermissions.
I think we got to remind people that you're a big man, right? You're pretty
6'1". I played, I think, at 217, 220.
Yeah, you're not a small guy.
No, I wasn't small. I wasn't overly big though. Like 6'1" nowadays is not big.
Yeah. I suppose I just remember you with your skates on and me trying to interview you or something like that.
Well, with skates on, I was probably 6'3", 6'4". So
yeah. And let's explain to everybody too that you got a few pinched nerves too, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm wriggling around like this, but I have I believe it's a pinched nerve in my neck that's causing some severe pain in my back shoulder blade. So I usually I'm doing something like this, or so if you see I'm wriggling around, I'm not on drugs or anything. I'm just really sore.
It's all good, buddy. It's all good. And I think that you taped off the first period really good as we can start heading into our second period now, because this is the time where we actually met in your professional career. And I'm going to start the clock now, but go to to the draft into the NHL?
Yeah, so drafted into the NHL. It was the year of the European invasion, when they opened up the floodgates for all of Europe to come in. So before it was just Canadians and Americans. So I was rated in the sixth round of the NHL draft, and because they were opening the floodgates for all these Europeans to come and get drafted, my agent said, "You know what? The draft's in Montreal. It's only an hour and a half, 2 hours from you. You might as well go." But there's 12 rounds. You're rated in the sixth, and with all these people coming in, there's a very good chance you're not going to get drafted. So I was lucky. I got drafted sixth round to the Buffalo Sabres. What an amazing day that was, and just put that jersey on and the hat on, and to know that you drafted to the NHL was just a dream, like any kid's dream. So that was I was very excited to be drafted, because I did think I probably wouldn't get drafted with the floodgates opening. And then from there, I went to Buffalo's training camp as an 18-year-old kid. Obviously, I had to make the team. Otherwise, I had to go back to junior hockey, because I couldn't play in the American Hockey League. So I went back to junior. Most people do, unless you're early first round phenom. And the second year, same thing. In Buffalo Sabres training camp, sent back to junior, went back to my OHL team. And then the third year, I was able to actually play pro. So it's the only unfortunate thing. That year was 94 or 5, I believe it was. And that was the year that the NHL lockout happened. So I got sent down to Rochester, and I was going to start my career in the American Hockey League in Rochester. And the NHL strike happened, and Buffalo sent down eight players. So they gave me an option of sort of not playing very much and sitting in the stands, or going down to play in Charleston, South Carolina, right on the beach. And I said, well, you know what? I want to play pro. I want to play at the highest level, but I also want to play. So I went down and played for Charleston, South Carolina, which was such a fun time. Some of my fondest memories in the East Coast Hockey League. And then from there, the strike ended, and I went back up to Rochester. So I finished the season in Rochester. And that year that I went back up to Rochester, South Carolina ended up winning the championship. And then the next year I went down to South Carolina again. Rochester won the championship. So I missed 2 years of, and that's why I know I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but that's why that year in 2000 or 99, when we won the cup in London, and I was the captain, I got to carry the cup around, was like my ultimate pinnacle right there, because I finally got my cup.
I remember, you know what? I remember that. And I remember what a big deal it was for you too, because you'd said that you missed a couple of these. But like quickly going to let's go back to Buffalo and getting on like those 2 years where you're trying to make the team. Who were the guys that you were playing against? Who were the guys in the lineup that you were trying to get on a team against?
Big names. You're talking, Pat LaFontaine, Dale Howardchuk, Dave Anderchuk, Grant Fuhr, Dominic Hasek, like some massive names. Rob Ray, Brad May, like just some massive names. And Buffalo had a really strong team. And I knew making that team was going to be really, really tough. One of my memories was my first training camp. I just remember going out there and being like, holy shit, the pace of this game is off the charts. Like, I was always near the end of my career when I had knee issues and I had to wear those big brace. So like when I was in London, I was nowhere near as fast as I was, but skating used to be my game when I first got into it. I couldn't skate as fast as half these guys. They were so fast. I just remember being very insecure. I remember having a lot of anxiety that I wasn't good enough to play in this league, and it was tough. It was tough, and I think that training nowadays is very different than training, when I was growing up. I mean, training in the summer was let's bench press as much as we can, let's squat as much as we can, and it wasn't about being nimble and being quick and working on your core and all that stuff. It was just bulk. Let's get as big and bulky as we can. And nowadays, hockey's different. I mean, you take a look at some of these NHL players, and you wouldn't even know they're NHL players. They're so slim, skinny, and that. Like half of them, their upper body is tiny. Their lower body is massive, though. Massive.
I wonder about that when you talk about that fear and that anxiety. That, like, obviously, we don't play well when we're in fear and we're in anxiety. We don't show up. And I remember that, when I played in lower leagues, I had nothing to lose. So I was a little bit softer. My hands were a little bit softer. I could pull some moves off that I wouldn't normally try. I started to have fun with the game, and my skill set actually got a lot better. And when I played up, when I was trying to make a team or I was trying to make an impression, I just grabbed the stick a little bit too tight, and all I turned into was a grinder. I was just like go on, like up and down as fast as I can, make a hit and get off the ice. And I never had a chance to showcase any skills because I was just scared of trying because I didn't want to
Yeah.
fail. How like I suppose what would you have said to that kid, that young Paul, just to go in and have fun, relax, and not worry so much about making the team and just worry about showing up the best for yourself?
Yeah, and that's super, super important. And I'll tell you what, when you were saying that, all I was thinking in my head is, I feel like I played myself out of the NHL. I
Mm,
really do. Like I think I didn't believe I belonged there, so I played myself out of the NHL. And I still to this day vividly remember saying to myself, I don't belong here. I'm not good enough to be here. I don't shoot hard enough. I don't skate fast enough. I'll have more fun if I'm playing in a league a little bit lower where I could be one of the best players. So I believe my mind probably played me out of making the NHL.
mm,
Whether I was talented enough, I don't know, but I just think I didn't want it bad enough because I didn't believe I was good enough,
yeah.
and that's pretty much what I think it really happened.
Yeah, no, I can identify really well with that because it is just this thing of like the guys who do, I don't know, they just seem to be able to pull out this thing in their brain where they just, it's not that they don't care, it's just that they're freer to move like they would move on an ice rink after school when they're 7 years old, 8 years old, just no care in the world. And it's like that's what it's so much a mental game as it is a physical game, where guys like you say can just like can step on the ice and just be loose and relax. And then there are other guys who just like there's this fear sets in of like I have to make an impression, so I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to risk anything. A nice little sauce
Yeah,
pass through the middle. I'm just going to bounce it off the boards and in and chase it.
yeah.
And the creativity just gets stifled.
And truthfully, I feel like that probably started for me when I made that team as a 15-year-old, when I made that Central Junior team as a 15-year-old, because I went from the superstar that everyone came to watch to score goals to the fourth line centerman who didn't play very much. And I'm 15 years old sitting on a bench with these men, and
Mm.
I'm not playing very much. My confidence went for a shit. And I think what happened is once I then made the OHL and I started to have some success in the OHL, then I went to the NHL and I'm like, I was that scared 15-year-old kid that was sitting on the bench thinking he wasn't good enough. And I think that's what happened to me. I said, you know what? I don't belong here. I'll have more fun in a lower league. I'll be the guy that people will come watch in a lower league. And I think I played myself into lower leagues is pretty much what I think I did.
You mentioned those times in Charlotte and in Rochester, but so tell me what was pro life like in the East Coast and in the American League for you, and what were your ambitions? What were you thinking when you were traveling to games, and what were you thinking about the future? Or were you thinking about making it to the NHL, or were you thinking about a life after the game?
I don't think you really think about life after the game when you're in the midst of it until you start to get a little later in your career, and then you're like, "Shit, what am I going to do?" And I
Mm,
think my first few years in the East Coast Hockey League and the American Hockey League, it was fun. I mean, keep in mind, I'm a 20-year-old kid living by myself in an apartment. Like it was those years were fun. Now, did I party a little bit too much? Yeah, I partied way too much, but it was like going to university, right? Like I'm living by myself. I'm living in Charleston, South Carolina, on the beach. Like I was loving life. I fell in love with the beach and the sand and sunsets and things like that. And I just enjoyed life. Like I really, really enjoyed life. And it wasn't until later in my career when I started to slow down a little bit. The legs weren't as good anymore. That I really started to look at the hockey as more of a job. And before I was just playing a game. My first, 5, 6, 7 years of pro, I was just playing a game and having fun. And then it became a job. And that's when I think I just sort of fell out of love with the game and realized I always told myself if I ever play the game for money, I should get out of the game. And I feel like my last year in London, I feel like I was playing it just for the money, and I didn't love the game. I didn't care to be there. I just played it for the money, and it's probably why. Well, I ended because of concussions. I had to shut her down because of the concussions. But I don't know if I would have played that much longer. To be honest with you, it was. And truthfully, I know I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but I think where I really struggled with hockey at the end was when the London Knights made me the player assistant coach. And I went from the first year being the captain. Second year, they asked me to be the player assistant coach. And, I'm during the day, I'm in there with the coach, and he might be telling me stuff about the players. Then I got to go into the dressing room and put on my player hat and know that he's talking about this player a certain way. And I'm just like, what do I do? So I think that became a little bit of a struggle for me because I was trying to hang with the boys and have fun as a 27-year-old kid. But then I was in the room with the coach, and the coach would be saying, you know what, John Smith, he's not playing. I'm going to bench him next game. You watch. And I got to go into the room, and John Smith's like, my parents are coming to town tomorrow. They can't wait to watch me play. And I'm sitting there going, oh, John, you're going to be sitting on the bench tomorrow. Sorry, bud. I found it was just a really, really tough job to do both.
That must be. We'll get into that in a minute. I want to, because something when you were talking about having fun. First of all, I want to know what was the first car you bought?
Okay.
With your first paycheck, and then those fun times of of living on your own and that independence, I suppose, that a young man feels, and getting a paycheck for playing the sports that he loves, and the feeling of pride, I suppose, I want to try to get into. But yeah, what was the first car you bought?
So when I signed my NHL contract, I thought my signing bonus was going to be a little bit bigger. So I wanted to buy a Corvette. That was my dream car. I wanted to buy a Corvette, which is, let's be honest, when you're traveling for hockey, a Corvette's not the right car.
No.
I ended up buying a GMC Jimmy Sport Utility as my first vehicle, and I babied that thing. And I was told, don't put too many kilometers on your car. It's not worth as much at the end. So everyone would be fighting over who doesn't have to drive. But yeah, it was a GMC Jimmy. It was a great sport utility, and it served the purpose because those first few years I was driving from Ottawa to Buffalo's training camp, Buffalo down to Rochester. If I went to Charleston, South Carolina, I was driving down to South Carolina, back up to Rochester. So I was putting some good miles on that vehicle, and it was a great vehicle. I loved it. It was my first vehicle. Now, sorry, that wasn't my first vehicle, but that's the first vehicle I bought with my pro money. Yeah.
Yeah. And do forgive me too, because I said Charlotte instead of Charleston. So
that's okay.
Yeah. And then, what was it like? Early 20s, you're getting paid to play the game that you love. You're playing in the East Coast League. You're playing in the American League. You've got your own apartment. You've got really a life that many people would just love to have. That you have some money in your pocket. You can all go have some beers. You can party. Maybe do a bit of flirting with the girls. And just enjoy being a professional athlete. Like, how much sense of joy did it give you? Did it give you a purpose? Did you just know yourself as Paul, the professional hockey player?
To be honest with you, I was, especially days when I got sent down to South Carolina, I was the only guy under an NHL contract, right? So I was getting paid more than anybody. So I think I probably enjoyed the off ice a little too much, Nick, than I did the on ice. I mean, there was a lot of partying, there was a lot of women, there was a lot of drinking, and it was. I just
is that a bad thing?
No, I mean, no. Look at how young, when you're 20 to 25 years old, you're getting paid to play a game, and you're living in sunshine, and you're living in the States, and you got your own independence, and yeah, like I probably partied and rocked it up too much than I should have.
See, I think about that, and I think of the fun that, because in our days, people did have a little bit more fun than they have now, and it's a little bit more. It's a lot more sterile now with regards to how the athletes, which I think is absolutely fantastic. But I also kind of think, how much are they missing out on? It's about balance, right? Maybe we took it over the edge a little bit too much, and I'll definitely put my hand up to that. But post hockey, more my TV career, I was a bit out of control, but there's this thing of the having fun, having money in your pocket, going out and experiencing life. But then I suppose the polarity of today's world, where I'm sure they don't get up to as much mischief as we did.
Well, I can tell you, I just thank God there was no social media when we were younger. I'm so glad there's no social media, because the shit that we got up to, my God. But it was it was almost like you were living like this university lifestyle where you got money in your pocket, and you're the celebrity there. Like, you go down to Charleston, South Carolina, and you say Wayne Gretzky, they'll say who? Say Paul Rushforth, they'll be like, oh my God, that guy's a hero. Right? So it's so I'm playing in these places where the hockey players are the kings, right? So you're young, you got money in your pocket, you're fit, you're in good shape, you're playing in beautiful places, and you're the king of the town. So it's hard not to get yourself into trouble, right? It's so hard.
So you're having fun, you're playing hockey. How does the move to London happen?
So the move to London happened when I was playing in um, Fresno, California, in the Western Hockey League, West Coast Hockey League. And the coach there said, "Listen, I'm the coach of the professional roller hockey team in San Jose. Would you like to play professional roller hockey this summer?" And I was like, "Really? So we'll give you a car," which I had my own, but we'll give you a car, we'll give you a house, and I think it was something like $400 American a game. We had 3 games a week, and I was like, cash, like cash." And I'm like, "Sure, I'll do that for the summer. Why not?" So I was playing roller hockey, and I remember I played against, so in our division, I'm playing in San Jose. In our division is Dallas, Phoenix, Vegas, and Anaheim, and all the barns, like all the rinks, are the NHL rinks. So it was such a cool experience. And I was living in San Jose, California, and I remember I was playing against Vegas one day, and I was a little bit chippy and tough that game, and I was spearing people, and I was turning my stick over when I slashed people and stuff like that. And the coach of the other team happened to be Chris McSorley.
There you go.
So Chris McSorley came to see me after the game and said, "Bud, I don't know how you are in hockey, but if you play like that in roller hockey, I want you on my team. Would you think of coming to London?" And and it just hit me because I remember when I was actually in Rochester in the American Hockey League, we went over to Davos, Switzerland to represent Team USA, even though I'm Canadian, but the Rochester Americans. We represented Team USA in the Spengler Cup, which is a massive tournament. Okay. And in that tournament, where was I going with my thought here? Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. The joys of concussions.
It's okay. You went six McSorley. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Sorry. So we're playing against Team Canada, and on Team Canada, you have Glenn Anderson, you have Sylvain Turgeon. We're playing against these guys, and some of them are saying to us, like, "Hey, keep playing in the American Hockey League, making your chump change. We're over in Europe playing half the amount of games, less fighting, double the money." And I'm like, So when Chris McSorley approached me, he says, "Would you think of playing in London, England? It's a very competitive league. It's, we'll give you a car and a house. You're living right in London." I was like, "That's intriguing. And we'll pay you this." I'm like, "Oh, that's way more than I was getting paid playing the American Hockey League." So I gave it a whirl. I finished my roller hockey career, I guess. And then I went over and played in London, England. I had to go right from San Jose right to London. And the funny thing was, is people say to me, "Okay, you've been playing roller hockey all summer. It's totally different than skating on ice. Make sure you go do a little bit of public skating. Otherwise, you're going to look like Bambi on the ice." So all of a sudden, I didn't do that. And I fly into London. Trainer picks me up at 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning or something. I got to be on the ice for my first practice at 10. I get on the ice. And I just remember I looked like a house league hockey player. I was so bad. And I remember some guy came, I can't remember, it might have been Claudio Scremin or one of these guys that came by me, and they're like, "Are you on the right ice?" Like, thought I was on the wrong ice. And I'm like, "No, I'm supposed to be here. Trust me, I know how to skate." So it took me about 3 practices. And Chris, who'd never really seen me play, only saw me roller hockey, came to me after the first practice, and he's like,
Oh,
I probably should have done a little more homework on you before." So anyways, it worked out fine. I mean, after 3 practices, I was back to skating normal. But I just remember those first 3 practices, and everyone watching me do drills thinking, "Who is this clown?
this guy.
Can't even skate."
Paul, you came to London during the Ice Hockey Super League. And for many, it's like they talk about it as being a golden age, but also a dark age too, because it did kill a lot of British players' careers.
Yeah.
But it was definitely probably the highest quality hockey that's been over here in the last 30 years. It was pretty 4 or 5 really intense years of growth, and guys like Chris McSorley. I think that what he did, and I remember him and Kurt Kleinendorf being like these 2 leaders that changed the face of British ice hockey, not just on the ice, but their professionalism, their attitudes, their workmanship off of the ice. and you were coming into a new setup in London here, and you were with Chris McSorley, and it's a new franchise. How did you feel coming into that? Like with the expectations, not knowing what British ice hockey is going to be like, but hearing some good things about the Ice Hockey Super League. Like, how did you feel coming into a new organization like that?
I was nervous because I knew, I mean, I'd been to Europe for vacation. Like I've never lived there. I was very, very nervous. I was nervous to play for Chris because I heard lots of stories about him. And, I was a hard nosed player. I wasn't much of a fighter, but I played hard. Um, and I just remember Chris being a hell of a hockey coach, really technical hockey coach. I loved playing for him. Some people didn't because he's hard, but I loved playing for him. He loved the way I played the game. Um, and I love the Super League. It was such a fun time. I mean, traveling to all the places that I've never seen before. I love the culture. It's just so different than North America. So different. And I really enjoyed being there. Um, and I remember my first year, I banged up my shoulder and I was out for quite a while. And I just remember being able to travel a little bit. I got to go to Spain with some of the boys, and we went to, Ireland, and just the culture and being there was just phenomenal. I loved the team. The guys on the team were amazing. It was just fun, and it was different. It was different than anywhere I've ever played. And it's to this day, I would say London is you know, probably one of my favorite places to visit. I absolutely love it. Love it.
That first, I mean, I saw that rink being the old, and the arena's not there anymore. Obviously, it's just been knocked down and it's a bunch of flats now, which are really nice, expensive. But the arena, I remember them like putting the seats in and putting the ice pad in, and I was there like watching it all with the guys from Anschutz Entertainment, Sports and Entertainment, um, and yeah, just the whole excitement of it. And then there was all the football fans from like West Ham that would come. And like that atmosphere just got whipped up where like, a couple of thousand people, if that sounded like 10,000 people, but eventually
Yeah,
it still sort of felt. So what were your memories of the fans?
passionate.
And how did, yeah, tell us
Uh,
more.
just passionate. The fans were, you know what? Because they didn't know hockey that well, you could have had the worst game and you'd come out and they'd be like, "You are brilliant tonight," and I'm just like, "I was terrible, but thank you." Just a little off topic. My daughter was born in London, and about 7 years ago, I took her back to London and showed her where she was born, the hospital she was born in, and I wanted to show her the rink. I said, "I'll wait to see. Dad used to have this big billboard on the rink with a big picture of him and that. You got to see the rink. I can't wait to show it to you." And I'm like, "Where's the rink? It's all flats now." My sandwich shop that I used to go to all the time wasn't even there. And I'm like, "What?" I had so many memories of after practice, we'd always go to the same sandwich shop and have either a salad or a pasta. Then we'd go over to another place right on the water and we'd have a cappuccino. Like my routine was just phenomenal in London because everything was so close. And the fans were the best. I love the London people. Still to this day, I mean, I still keep in touch with some of them. Tony Boot actually came over and stayed with me years ago, but him and his wife came, or I think it was ex-wife now, came and stayed with me. Yeah, I have nothing but love for the London fans, and they treated me like gold. Like they chanted my name. They just treated me like gold. And the beauty of these London fans is sometimes I was like, "Do you guys have jobs? Like they come on the road with us all the time. Like we had our, what was it called, the Barmy Army or something like that." It was phenomenal. Like it was an um, experience that I'll never forget. And I remember Tony Boot, who always came to the games and took all the photos and all that. So I have so many memories of my London years just from pictures that he took. It was incredible. Yeah, it was incredible.
Beautiful.
And
You
a
mentioned
lot of go ahead.
no, you mentioned Claudio Scremin. Who were some the other guys? Because he was a good hockey player. You
He was
had
a
some
hell of
good
yeah.
guys in that lineup. Who are some of the guys that you just were like, wow, this
I,
is a hot.
I still talk to Dennis Maxwell. He's actually in real estate now in somewhere in the States. I can't remember where he is. Todd Wetzel lives right around the corner from my cottage. One of my favorite people was Rob Ketty. Yeah, he was easily one of my favorite people ever. And that year that we ended up winning the cup, I was the assistant captain that year, and then when Rob went down with a puck to the face, they gave me the captain, and I was carrying that trophy around, and that should have been Rob.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but he was one of my closest friends. And I remember my first year, my wife at the time, we went over there and we stayed in this. We were in the same building, the same flat as Rob and his wife Janelle, and we had some great times together. So, yeah, there's a
You
lot of.
know,
Go ahead.
yeah. Out of the guys, like people are like, I got obviously working on Sky. I got to see all the game. The good, I got to see all the guys, and I gotta say, if I was to start building a team, and you were to say, Nick, who's your number one guy? And all the players I saw in the Super League, I gotta say Rob Kenny would be my first guy.
He's
Just says,
Rob.
yeah,
He reminded me of like a Mark Messier type of guy. He.
mm,
I mean, I don't think he was the best player on the team, but he was the glue of the team.
yeah,
And when he went down, and I had to take over the captain's role, like that was a lot of those are big shoes to fill for Rob
yeah,
Kenny. I mean, he was a prototypical, unbelievable captain that people followed. People
yeah.
would listen to him and follow him, and unfortunately,
Magic man. It was, yeah.
yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah,
unfortunately,
he has,
yeah,
yeah,
he's no longer with us. But yeah, he's probably my fondest memory over there. I've lost touch with Greg Burke, but Greg Burke was probably one of my best friends over there as well. Love Berkey. We did a
yeah,
lot of stuff together. So,
yeah.
but I've
Some
lost
great,
a lot. Yeah,
yeah,
just some good guys. But as you talked about earlier in the first period, we talked about growing up with all these kids year after year. Well,
mm,
in London, our team pretty much flip flopped every year. I mean, we didn't have the same players all the time. Like we almost had a new team every year. So,
mm,
and that's why you don't have as many close friends in those years as you do growing up playing hockey.
mm. Now I've got to. We're wrapping this up, and I think I know what you're going to say. Your highlight is, which is lifting that cup, right?
Easily.
Tell us through that. Tell us what the emotions. Tell us what it's like to lift the cup. Tell us what everything you went through. When you got your hands on it, and yeah, just give us that feeling.
I'll try not to get emotional on this one because I still get emotional thinking about it. But it was my whole career. All I wanted was a ring. That's all I wanted was a championship ring and a chance to hoist the cup. And to be the captain and do it, it was like a dream come true. It was the biggest memory of my whole hockey career is hoisting that cup. And then the year after, in the dressing room, when Mr. Anschutz came and delivered everyone their championship ring, oh my God, I didn't take that thing off. Unfortunately, my fingers are too fat nowadays. But that ring I still have. I've saved it for my son, who's going to get it one day. And that was easily the highlight of my entire hockey career. And I still get emotional today here talking about it.
Yeah, like I can feel it, man. I can feel it.
Yeah,
Like what? So that's the thing is like we have these things, these thoughts, and these dreams growing up on the pond and the fun, and and then all of a sudden you kind of lose you're getting paid to play, and the passion kind of goes out on, and then all of a sudden you got your hands on this cup, the crowd's going nuts, and you get to lift it up, and it's like all that joy from being a kid all of a sudden
yeah,
pops out at you at one moment, man. And I remember it. I remember thinking this, why is this thing so big for this guy?
yeah.
And then the story of you missing out on the 2 years, and always wanting it. And I know I remember it as being a very emotional moment.
It really was. It really was. I mean, I still see guys nowadays they'll take less money to go to a place in the NHL to win that cup, and that would have been me.
Mm.
Money is great, but knowing that you're a champion is even better. I can't believe I can't even imagine these guys who play in the NHL and win the Stanley Cup, and to be the captain and being able to hoist that Stanley Cup would shivers. That'd be shivers. Yeah, was it the NHL that I won my cup? No, but it was pro hockey, and I won a cup, so I'll always cherish that.
What a way to end the second period.
Awesome.
Awesome. And now we're gonna go straight to it, dude. Straight to unfortunately I'm gonna talk about concussions. And then
Yeah,
that last year, I do remember for some reason I remember it stats wise, you got a lot of penalty minutes in that last year. More so
yeah.
than
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I feel like my legs were really slowing down. I had braces on both my knees, and my legs were slowing down. And truthfully, that was still in an era with the hooking and the slashing and stuff like that. And maybe I just couldn't keep up, and so I took a lot of dumb penalties. And it was my worst, definitely my worst year in London. But I already had wrapped in my head that I was retiring at the end of the year.
when
So
when did you know, at the beginning of the year? Or was there a certain point during the season?
I knew when my daughter was born. So she would have been, at the time, my last year there, she would have been maybe 1 or 2. And I knew I wanted her closer to my parents and my wife at the time's parents. And I was battling a lot of injuries. My knees were hurting. My concussions were bad, and it got to the point where if I just had a glove that hit my chin, I'd be concussed, right? So, um, and back then it was, you have a concussion, you play with it, right? It's not like today. So I think it was going into my last year. I remember saying to my mom, because my mom still is a very successful real estate agent. And I was like, Mom, I screwed up. I didn't get a university education. Like, I should have listened to you, and I should have taken a scholarship, and I didn't. Now I have no education. I have my high school. I don't have any skills. What am I going to do? And she says, well, have you ever thought about getting into real estate? You'd be great at it. And I was like, oh, never thought about it. Why don't I look into the courses? So I looked into the courses, and I actually ended up taking so back then it was a 3-phase course. You took phase 1, and then phase 2 and 3 could be correspondence. So I took my first phase and I passed it, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Then I went away to play my last year of hockey. The whole time I was thinking about real estate. So when my year ended, I still wasn't totally convinced that I was going to retire, because I was nervous. I've never had a job, and hockey's been my only job. I took my phase 2 and my phase 3, and after I passed my phase 3 in that summer, I said to myself, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to do the injuries anymore. I don't want to travel to Europe, to States, anywhere with my family anymore. I'm done. So I made the decision then to retire, and I didn't know if it was the right decision. And actually, the last thing I did was the Kingston Frontenacs of the OHL were looking for a coach. They were hiring a coach, and I put my name into the hat. And I had no coaching experience other than being a player assistant coach and filling in when who left? Was it Jim Breton, our coach, or one of our coaches left, and I had to fill in as the coach for probably 3 weeks to a month, and I kind of loved it. So I put my name in the hat for that coaching job, and it came down to me and one other gentleman. And I said to myself, if I get this coaching job, that's what I'm going to do. And if I don't, I'm retiring from hockey and getting into real estate. I didn't get the coaching job, thank God. And I retired and I got into real estate. And I remember saying to my mom, can I join your team? Can I be a buyer rep on your team? And my mom said, no. I said, why? She goes, because you will make it. Trust me, you don't need to be my buyer rep. You will make it. And so here I was, retiring from the game, the only thing I knew, the only job I've ever done, no education. I have to buy a house moving back to Ottawa. I have to buy cars, furniture. I made good money in London, but I needed to have some success in real estate really quick. And I succeeded out of fear. That first year, I was a sponge. I learned off everybody. I went to every conference. I read every book I could. I studied people. And that first year, where the average agent was selling between 2 and 3 homes, I sold 70. So I sold 70. And then I remember saying to my manager at the time, she goes, so Paul, what are your goals? I said, my goal is to be number 1 in Ottawa. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't mind being number 1 in Canada for all of real estate. And she's like, she goes, that's a good one, but nice try. So I still remember that. And she told me I couldn't do it. So I started in real estate going into 2004. In 2007, I was number 1 in Ottawa. In 2008, I was number 1 in Canada. And in 2009, I was number 1 in the world for my company, Keller Williams, which was the biggest company in the world. So 5 years to be number 1 in the world. I remember going back to her and I just said, thanks for doing that for me.
Wow.
But you know what? I have some bright spots and some not so bright spots. I mean, I did things a little bit differently than what people did. I spent a fortune on advertising. My visas were maxed out. I was living on lines of credit. I was down to my last penny. In fact, in my first 2 years in real estate, I made $750,000, and I was about $170,000 in debt. So, I mean, I was spending and spending and spending, but that might have been what propelled me to quickly become where I was, because I had, billboards everywhere. I had full page ads everywhere. I was just spending and spending, and everyone was like, who is this friggin' guy? So yeah, so I succeeded out of fear. I had to make it for my family. I had a young family. I just had my second kid at the time, and I just we went on to we've been number one in Ottawa now since 2007. And it's been a ride. It's been a ride. And lots of ups and downs though. Real estate's a tough gig. There's times I didn't see my kids wake up and I didn't see my kids go to bed. Lost my marriage over it. So there's been lots and lots of ups, but there's been some downs too, right?
Mhm.
So
You said you were driven by fear,
mhm,
this fear of like not being able to provide for your family, and I'm interested in that because I know that a lot of
mhm.
people experience fear. They get scared of, and for me, I think fear rattled my life for so long that I just developed all these defense mechanisms. I became a bullshitter and a manipulator and a liar. And I was always there. It wasn't because I was a bad guy. And then I started, drinking heavy and it just took the pain away. It took the fear away. It didn't take the pain away, it took the fear away. Then the consequences, all of a sudden things would happen and then pain would develop. And then I would keep going because it took the pain away. So, but I know first of all, it helped me with my fear. Now, some guys, Paul, would retreat into like a cave and they're like, I'm scared, and they'll just take something, whereas you used it as a motivator. I'm really interested in that. The motivation to read the books, to do the courses, to stay up late, to market, so there's this work ethic inside of you. And I'm really interested where did it come from hockey? Was it before that? Is it something your parents instilled in you? Um,
Well,
you know,
I think it
yeah.
was from I think it came from just wanting to be the best, and someone telling me I couldn't do it, and but there's challenges along the way. I mean, I've had multiple stints in rehab, always suffering from substance abuse. But and you're right. Like a lot of times that is just masking the pain, right? But I just knew that I couldn't fail. I had too many people depending on me,
Mm,
and
mm,
it's it. My work ethic was always I want to be the best. I want to be the best. I want to be the best, and I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to fail. But with it became like health challenges and addiction, abuse, things like that. They told me when I retired from hockey, they're like, you better make sure you keep going to the gym because, once you stop going to the gym, you're going to balloon up. And I was like, oh, look at this Greek god. I'm not going to put on any weight. Within 6 months, my pants weren't fitting me. I wasn't eating right. I was on the road all the time, drinking too much, put on massive amounts of weight. So yeah, like everything comes with a challenge, right? And there's lots of things that I've done that are really, really, really good. And there's lots of things that I've done that are really, really, really bad, So just like any job that comes with a lot of consequences and a lot of pain.
mm. Well, the name of this podcast is Repurpose, and I think, well, the idea is that for so long, from young preteen Paul, you're a hockey player, and up until your mid 30s or mid 30s when you quit, right? And
I was actually 30.
oh, sorry, early 30, yeah, 30, and then all of a sudden this idea of like Paul the hockey player, Paul the guy who has his name on billboard, like, well, funny enough, you get them in real estate, but you had your picture on an arena in London, people chanting your name even when you thought you had a bad game. All of a sudden that's gone. And for me, like, and again, the story is going to keep being repeated because I tell the story on this podcast is that I quit playing hockey in Guildford, and I got straight into a job on TV, and a job that I had no equipment for. I had no tools to be a live sports broadcaster, and I got it because I charmed my way into it. And so when I looked at it and I looked at the Porsche and I looked at the flat and Chiswick and I looked at the suits, I just felt like I didn't deserve any of it and that I was an imposter. And then all of a sudden, someone introduced me to a line of cocaine and a martini in Soho. And it wasn't like I got high. It was like the fear just went, ugh.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, ah. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I can breathe now. Let's be normal. Let's have some normal conversations. And I knew nothing about alcoholism. My dad was an alcoholic, and it runs in the family. And it got me, and I, even when I knew you, like I was struggling when I met you, and it was just the beginning of the struggle. And it was, and I didn't recognize it for like 10 years, of going, wow, is when I stopped playing hockey. I lost
Yeah.
all accountability. I lost the guys in the changing room who would call me on my bullshit and say, Nick, I think you're drinking too much, or maybe check yourself on that. And I was just like a lone guy, and I had no one to keep me accountable to anything. And I think that's the theme of this third period, is like the loss of a teammate, the loss of our identity. And then all of a sudden we're, like you're talking about, you didn't have any education with regards to getting a life after hockey. So you get into real estate. And what was that? Yeah, my question is, did you feel like you were a fraud? I suppose being in getting into real estate, is you for so long you were known as a hockey player.
Well, it's funny. My bio still to this day talks about my hockey career, and I used my hockey background for years. I wanted to stay in that spotlight as the professional hockey player. And there's a lot of times where I felt like a fraud because I was no longer that friggin' hockey player, but I kept using that to boost my ego. Probably. I mean, I thought people wanted to know about it. No, it was me. I wanted to know about it. It was all my ego. Um, and then yeah, I think that for me a lot of the time is and I don't know what it is. I feel like some of it was I got into real estate and I was always looking for my mom's approval, and when I didn't get it, that's usually when I really felt like a fraud. Like a fraud when I wasn't getting my mom's approval. So I wanted to do more. I needed to sell more houses. I needed to put myself more into the spotlight. And I think I was just looking for my mom's approval, to be honest with you, and I didn't get it. And I think that's what just kept me going down, down, and down. And much like you, that's when you turn to I mean, like, to be honest with you, my first two stints in rehab were for painkillers. Now, keep in mind, I lived on painkillers when I played hockey, right? So it was, some of the places I played, it'd be like, hey, I got a sore thumb. Go to the cabinet and grab. You'd open the cabinet, and there's just every painkiller you ever wanted, and you take whatever you want. And that was the way hockey was like. And when I retired from hockey, I just never stopped. And then it got to the point where those things were numbing me. The fear of making all this money, but spending all this money and having no money, and the stresses and all that. The only thing that would stop me from feeling like a bag of shit was popping a few pills, right? And then that got worse, and that got worse, and then before long, I was doing shit that it's crazy. Like, it's funny, the year in 2009 when I was number one in the world for Keller Williams, I was in rehab for 2 months in 2009. You know, and I just think the job, the stresses, the ego, having to be number one, having to prove to everyone, trying to stay in the spotlight, got to me. And and the only thing that helped me was zoning out and popping a few pills. And then it became a habit, and then it became an addiction, then it became a problem.
It's like my knowledge of it now as someone who's like over 7 years sober, and reading books on trauma and addiction. And people always say, and Gabor Mate is the big guy for it, right? It's not the addiction, not why the addiction, but why the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that people like, what do you mean, Nick? Why the pain? And again, I had to like a breakup with a girl, seeing violence in a home when I'm younger. Like, all of these things create these traumas, these pains that we can suppress, and we can, oh, it wasn't that bad, and I didn't really see that happening, and they just get, no, so they come out in these ways, and all the pain just is. I just remember my last few days of drinking, like my skin was crawling. I wanted to die.
Yeah.
And the only thing that would alleviate it was another drink, and that was the
Yeah.
insane thing of it. And it was just to kill pain.
Yeah.
So I suppose, through your rehabilitation, how have you been able to heal? What are the things that you've been able to say, these have been my traumas, these have been my pains, and these are the things that I've done to heal?
Well, to be honest with you, the one of the biggest things I had to get over, and don't get me wrong, I still today struggle with alcohol. But I haven't. I mean, like right now, I'm in excruciating pain with my back, and I have my girlfriend has painkillers in this house that I won't take. I just because I know what happens. But I think the one thing I had to come to grips with, and probably the one thing that, and you know what, before I get into this, I do believe that people, even without addictions, should be going to rehab. it's a wonderful place. Like it's you learn so much about yourself. You learn what's really triggering your issues. What you're masking, where the issues are. And one of the things that came out is I'd always look for my mom's approval, and I wouldn't get it. And the one thing I had to look into is, why does she not give me the approval? And it was her life. She had a terrible childhood, terrible, like some of the worst things a child could go through. She went through, and she's not able to do that. And I just had to realize that she's not able to give me the approval I need. She thinks she's doing it, but she's not, and that's on me now. So once I learned that, I think it really helped me. And now I don't even need her approval. Before, like, I'd put this full page ad in the paper. I'd be like, look at this, mom. And she'd be like, oh, I would have used a different color there, and I would have changed this here. And I'm like, that just got me lower, lower, and lower. And when now I realize I don't need that approval because I'm not going to get it. I've come to grips with that, and now I can move past that, right? And I'm sure there's lots of other demons that are in me that need to come out, but that's for me to work on, right? And there's times I remember when I was struggling with addiction, my addiction doctor told me he goes to rehab every second year. And I said, but you don't have any problems. Like, you don't. He goes, yeah, but it's beautiful to work on yourself, and you get a month to 2 months in there to work on yourself and really find out, well, what's going on. And not to turn this into an addiction podcast, but you're right. It's just coming to grips with what are your pain points? Why are you using? You're not using because you like it, right? You're using it because you feel like it's masking something, that taking the pain away from something. And for me, it was just the stress. Like, I had a wife and 3 kids back home. I'm trying to provide for everybody. And, the stress for that, it was through the roof. And the only thing that would stop that is if I can throw some pills down my throat with a vodka and sit back and just melt away into the couch. And I don't have any pain anymore. But guess what? As soon as I wake up, I got pain again,
I remember those cycles.
Yeah.
Like I say, I was a 24-hour a day drinker. Like, so I had to drink to breathe. And I remember, like, 2 o'clock in the morning, like clockwork, I'd get up, I'd pee, feel the pain, and I'd have to have an open bottle of vodka by my bed, and just take a couple of swigs just to, I used to think it was warm, but it's actually burning my esophagus.
Yeah.
Just to kind of curl up back on the bed and go back to sleep. And it was just all of these regrets and remorses, and all based around self and ego. And I could have done this and I could have done that, and just beating myself up over and over again. And
Yeah.
I'm interested because, this is again, I quote Gabor Mate because he's who I read the most. And he says that not everybody who has trauma becomes an addict or an alcoholic, but all alcoholics and addicts have had some kind of trauma.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's what we need to get to. And that's why I love the fact that you said that, people should, and you don't have to go check yourself into a 28-day rehab, but self-care is so essential. And the 12 steps of work for me, and they're not new principles. They've been around for a long, long time. They've just been reworded into a program that works for a knucklehead like me. But all of these, I just call them protocols of transformation. If more people, anybody listening to this, just goes, oh, I don't have to be like Paul and Nick to have that pain, but I could just have some discomfort. I might have a difficult relationship with food, or with sex, with pornography, with alcohol, with drugs. Just having a difficult relationship with something because it's numbing some pain,
Yeah.
is enough to say, hey, do you know what? I'm going to start taking some self-care, looking at some meditation and some heat shock protein, cold saunas, anything, just to help us treat our bodies with some respect, and then someone to talk to, that person just
the problem, Nick, too, of a lot of people is, and this is where I'm coming from. I used to think self-care was selfish, right? Like, I'm by me going to take care of myself, it's wrong because my wife's at home with the 3 kids and I should be helping her, and so my self-care will be put on the back burner because I need to be at home, and it was the total wrong attitude. I mean, for years I didn't go to the gym because I thought it was selfish, because I'm working every day, all day, and I got kids at home I need to take care of, so I can't go to the gym and take care of myself. I need to go take care of them, right? And it's just I put my health on the back burner for a long, long time. At one point, just before the pandemic, I got up to 270 pounds. Like, I was a big, big boy. And through the pandemic was a blessing for me because I just started walking and taking care of myself, listening to self-help, motivation, things like that. And there's some days I'd walk 30 kilometers, like I would just walk and I'd walk and I'd walk. I think there was one week I did something like 180 kilometers in one week, just walking and listening to stuff just during the pandemic. And I actually got down all the way to, well, I played hockey almost at 220 and I got down to 227. So I lost quite, now I'm back up to 240. So I've gained a little bit of weight, but once again, I'm no longer taking care of myself, right? I'm not walking anymore. So but just going through that phase, I was in such peace. And even though the world was going to shit, I was in the best place mentally I'd ever been in.
I think that's such a good message for people as we wrap up this third period, is that self-care is not selfish,
Yeah.
but it is something that is developed, and it's something that I found self-care by helping other people. That really gave me some self-esteem, because for so long I thought I was just a piece of shit. And it was through volunteer work and through being part of a community that I actually could look in the mirror and for the first time ever go, "Oh, Nick, I'm proud of you." I was
Yeah.
49 years old when I first said I was proud of me, and I'm 52 now. So that shows you, and that was in 4 years of sobriety, where I had to look at all the people who had helped and built some self-esteem, where then I started to discover that, oh, I've met scared 8-year-old Nick, and scared
Yeah.
scared 18-year-old and scared 28-year-old. And I got to hold that kid and say, everything's going to be okay. You haven't been an asshole. You've just been a scared human being. So now just be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That's amazing though that you're 7 years sober and feeling really good. That's awesome.
But the crazy thing is, Paul, I haven't even thought about a drink. Like, that's the thing. Is like, for a guy like me who is a 24-hour a day drinker, where alcohol, if you put it in front of me, I would swear I don't want it. Like,
You,
I'm not
you
gonna have it, and then I'd have it. But now you could put it. I don't even think about it. It's like
yeah,
gone from my, and I can only put it down to the process of continuing to do what I do, and that's all I'm gonna do. Because everyone says, you stop doing what you're doing, the thoughts will come back. So I'm
yeah.
gonna always be active in my recovery community. But
Well, you know what they say? Once an addict, always an addict, right? Like
yeah,
if
once a pickle, always a pickle,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So if you
Yeah,
can, if you can put a drink in front of you and not even think about it, then that's amazing. Yeah.
not even
And I
just
just, what I do is I try to stay, like, for example, with painkillers, I just don't put them in front of me.
yeah,
If because I know if they're in front of me, there's a chance I'm going to take it, right? But
yeah,
I just don't put them in front of me.
yeah. Don't risk it if you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. So, Paul, as we round out this period, I'm going to ask you: has Paul found a new purpose? Have you started to look in the mirror and go, "Wow, you're happy with this, Paul"? It has nothing to do with being number one real estate dude or the hockey player that lifted the cup. Like, have you started to find some purpose and some passion in your life?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. I'm still in that grind right now where I'm running everything. I have multiple companies, multiple properties, multiple businesses, and I'm still in the trenches. And I'm in the next. I'm turning 50 next year, so I'm 49 right now, and I don't want to be doing this forever. And so I need to find some passion. I need to find what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I'm with an amazing girl right now, so which is absolutely perfect. My kids are doing great. They're, one's in fourth year university, another one's in the job, in the workforce, another one's in grade 9. Um, and there's still a lot of things, my life with my ex that I still need to wrap up. That's still been a bit of a grind. And once I get through that, then I think it's just, I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor is really what I want to do, and my passion is traveling. My passion is beaches and sunsets. And that's what I want to do.
I got a funny feeling there's a purpose in you too, though, brother. You
Yeah.
know, and I got a funny feeling it's doing something to help other men, and telling your story. It's deep, man. It's deep, and I can feel that you're still in there, and that you're you're healing, and you're moving forward, and all of the stuff you've been through that 20 minutes that doesn't comprehend what you've been through over the last, since you stopped playing, all of that turning into something where you can say to another man or another person, here, you know what, let me help you because I've been there.
Yeah. It's, you know, it, it's funny, like when people ask me, like they think I just became this real estate guru overnight, right? And I was like, if I could just tell the story of what brought me to where I am today, you'd probably buy my book if I wrote a book about it, just because
There
it's,
you
like
go. Yeah.
not every life is just, where we are today. Like what we've gone through to get where we are, the ups, the downs, the struggles, the defeats, and all that. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Thanks, Paul. That's the end of the third period.
Awesome, Nick. My pleasure, bud. That
Awesome,
was
dude.
great. Great chatting with you again.
Listen, dude, it's not over though. I got an overtime
Okay.
for you.
Okay.
Hey, this is just coming to me. Okay. Now, thinking about Paul growing up, playing hockey, BC, little early memories, thinking about Paul, like getting into, playing for your teams and then getting drafted and then all that pro career, and in always in the search of like, what would mom say, and now if you had a gift and that gift was to give your mom that language, right, in those moments, what would you have liked to have heard?
What I'm doing was enough.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing is enough. And you know what? I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And it's, you know what? I know she is. I just
There
have
you
never
go.
heard it. Never heard it, And I feel like I've stopped doing it, but I used to always tell my mom all my wins and look at that. And I just wanted to hear, wow, that's amazing, Paul. And I never heard it. I got,
Yeah.
oh, that's wonderful. Good. Like I
Yeah.
heard that, but never that, you're enough and I'm proud of you. And, but I think once I realized, like my mom grew up, her mother died when she was really young. She was raped by her dad. She was beaten up by her brothers. She was lived in an orphanage. That's her upbringing. And I mean, she's given me the most beautiful life, but because of the way she was raised and what she's had to go through, she's not capable of giving me what I need. And I just had to finally be like, I'll never get it. So stop trying to get it. Just know that it's not her fault. It's just the way she was raised.
She didn't have the language, right?
Yeah.
She didn't have the language, but you've got the language now.
Yeah.
So you can, like, are you saying to you, like lifting that cup, ending your career, starting a life that, reaching number one with that company around the global, and me being able to see glimpses of it online, your huge successes. Are you proud of you?
I don't think I am actually.
No.
Yeah. No, I don't think I am. I think I beat myself up and for a lot of things that I've gone through and I've done and things I'm not proud of and I still wear. Um, probably one of my biggest memory in hockey was hoisting the cup, and probably my proudest moment in life was getting off the painkillers. Right. So it's that's things like that I'm proud of. But no, there's a lot going on in my life that I guess what I'm saying is I feel like I'm not even living yet. I'm just existing. And I need to start living. And I know that's going to take a lot of work on my behalf for sure.
Well,
And
you're getting.
I've always had this guilty thing that I don't deserve and I don't belong. And and for the longest time I never never went to the gym because I didn't want to get in trouble at home because she's been at home with the kids all day and I can't take care of myself. And even with my medical, like if there's something going on with medical, I'm like, I don't need to see a doctor. I'm fine. Like even this pain I'm going through right now. I've been like this for 3 weeks and I'm going to see the doctor tonight. After 3 weeks, I'm finally going to go see what's going on with me because I've been in excruciating pain. But anyways, no, I guess to the question, no, I don't think I am proud of myself. And I feel like every time someone tells me how good I am, I do this because I'm not proud of myself. So I'm like, I'm a fraud. I'm a fraud. That's what I tell myself.
Dude, I lived it. And like I say, even I was your age, 49 years old, and it took me to that age where I finally did something where I could say I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And I do feel you're on that path. And I think that you see in your openness to talk about your struggles, what you've done, and you didn't know it, but what you've done is you've helped me because you've been honest with me and you've told me this story of like, oh, and I don't have to feel so alone. You know, I don't have to feel so ashamed of the stuff that I did because you've been honest and you've created a level of trust with me. See, you don't know it, but you've helped me.
Okay.
That gives you self-esteem because you go, I gave Nick some like 2 hours of my
Yeah.
time, but I actually, in my honesty, I gave another guy who was a recovered alcoholic some hope and some strength and some feeling of not being so such a fuck up, right?
Yeah.
So I thank you for that. Thanks for being honest, then.
Well, you know what? I've always been honest with my story. I mean, when I was going through all this, I'd always say to myself, "Well, I can't let people know I'm struggling. I'm in real estate. I got to keep this squeaky clean image." And it wasn't until I went to one of my old coaching programs, and they'd always have me up on stage and this and that. I never thought I'd deserve to be up there, but every conference I'd be up on stage teaching people this and this and that. And I remember this one time, this guy stands up, and I'm already struggling with painkillers at this time. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with weight. I'm struggling with just struggling with everything. This guy stands up and he's like, "How do I become Paul Rushforth?" And I just stopped right there, and I was just like, "This is a moment where I can shift and really show some vulnerability." And I said, "Dude, you don't want to be me." And I just went into all my struggles. I was like, "Do you know I'm struggling with this? Do you know I've been to rehab here? Do you know this? Do you know that?" And afterwards, probably about 10 or 15 people came up to me and they're like, "Thank you so much for being real. Now we actually want to be you because of that." Because and then someone's like, "I'm struggling with this and I'm struggling with this. And thank you for saying that, because if you can get up with where you are in your life and you're struggling with all this, I don't feel bad about myself anymore." So I tell my story. Like, I don't blast it out there, but I've told many stories where I tell people what my struggles. I tell people my life is not all roses. I wasn't just born with money in my pocket. I struggled, like tons of struggles, and it's more real. And it's, if I can help, that's great. Uh, and that way also I don't feel as much as a fraud, right? Because people know that I'm not as great as everyone thinks I am.
That's purpose, and you are as great as you are. You know, you are the guy I've been in touch now since I was struggling in Toronto, and we've messaged each other, and I'm grateful that we've stayed in touch. I'm really grateful you said yes to coming here and telling your story. Your story is going to help people, dude. So
Good.
if that gives you anything where you can walk away from this and feel good about yourself, then I hope you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Nick. That means a lot.
All right, brother. Well, listen, that's it for this
Cool.
one. Paul, I got a funny feeling we're going to do another one in a year. Okay. We got to
Done.
do
I'll
it.
do it anytime.
All right, brother. You take care of yourself.
Great chat with you, bud.
All right. Bye, dude. Bye.
Bye now.